Next, to any form of action of customers or clients of a securities market participant to recover or otherwise claim monies and securities entrusted to the latter in the ordinary course of the latter's business, as well as any action or securities market participant or appropriate regulatory agency or self-regulatory organization to pay or settle such claim or liabilities. Quite a lengthy provision. Now, let me explain this for your better appreciation. There was a broker, no? A broker of securities. This broker is the one acquiring or purchasing, say, equity securities in favor of their customers. So there is this broker, okay? They will buy equity securities for their customers. Say the customer would like to buy San Miguel shares. So they contacted their broker for that broker to buy them San Miguel Corporation securities, no? Equity securities at the Philippine stock market. Okay? PSE, Philippine Stock Exchange. So there was that order. There was money placed in the account of the broker to purchase these San Miguel shares. Now, the broker effected the sale as instructed by the customer. So there was already San Miguel shares acquired by the broker for the customer. Okay? Now, at that point, the securities were still being lodged before the broker. Okay, it's not yet in the name of the customer, but they were already purchased using the money of the customer. Now, at that point, the broker applied for corporate rehabilitation, and a commencement order was issued together with the stay order. Now, the issue is what happens to those securities, those San Miguel shares that were purchased by the broker using the money of the customer? Will they be stayed also? Will they be covered by the stay order? This is an exception as well. So here, the broker will have to turn over the securities which their customer purchased using the money of their customers. And the broker cannot withhold these securities, these San Miguel shares, because they were owned by the broker, by the customer of the broker. Okay, so they will have to turn this over to the one who, to the customers who ordered these securities. Okay, so that is exactly what is meant by letter D here. Okay, now let's move further to the actions of the licensed broker or dealer to sell pledged securities of the debtor pursuant to securities pledge or margin agreement for the settlement of securities transactions in accordance with the provisions of the Securities Regulation Code and its implementing rules and regulations. Quite technical. But for your easy appreciation, let me explain. Okay. Suppose, again, this time the broker, again, no, would like, was instructed by the customer, can you buy me San Miguel shares, say 1 million San Miguel shares at say 70 pesos per share. So it's quite, I would say, substantial. So there was that instruction, but then the broker informed the customer, you no longer have money with us. Your account is already depleted. You no longer have available cash. So the customer said, can you not lend me under this margin agreement? This margin agreement is just like the broker will advance the money to purchase the shares requested by the customer. Okay? So it will be the broker who will pay for these shares ordered by the customer. So the money is actually from the coming from the broker and not from the customer, because the customer no longer has the money. So the broker advanced the payment of the stocks, the shares that were ordered by their customer. But when they purchase it already and it is with them, suddenly the customer applied for corporate rehabilitation. And accordingly, the court issued a stay order. Now, what will happen to those shares that were purchased by the broker upon the instruction of the debtor? Should this still be required to be turned over to the debtor who has already applied for rehabilitation? The answer is no more. Here, the debtor, or rather the broker, can sell the shares, the San Miguel shares, sell them and apply them to the obligation of the debtor who instructed the purchase of these shares. That is actually what was meant here. Can a stay order prevent the broker from selling this to answer for the unpaid obligation of the debtor in relation to that margin agreement, that agreement that they previously had? The answer is that stay order will not prevent the broker from selling the securities that were acquired under a margin agreement. Okay? I hope I have clarified that in the most simplest way. Okay. Letter F. The clearing and settlement of financial transactions through the facilities of a clearing agency or similar entities authorized, registered, and or recognized by the BSP and the SEC, as well as any form of actions of such agencies or entities to reimburse themselves for any transactions settled for the debtor. Again, very technical. Now, suppose there was a bank. Okay, there was a bank. They would like to acquire certain government securities or treasury bonds. And the other party is also a bank wanting to sell their securities, no, in their name. So the price has been agreed upon by these two banks, no, the seller and the buyer of these treasury bonds. And so the arrangement was already effected. There was already a perfected buy and sell of securities. Now, per arrangement, the seller will deliver the securities, okay, and the buyer will pay through its account with BSP. So they have an account with BSP, and the payment to the seller will be taken from that account of the buyer of the securities and will be now paid to the seller. So the seller now parted with the securities, no, the commercial papers. They already parted with that treasury bonds, and then now they were expecting payment from the account of the buyer with BSP. Unfortunately, there was a stay order issued because this bank has applied for some relief, no? And so there was this money before BSP. Can that be also covered? Suppose there was a suspension, a stay order issued. No, it cannot be covered because of this particular exception. Because that money is already intended to pay the securities which was already received by the buyer. Okay, the buyer of the securities. And it would definitely be unfair if the buyer will retain the securities they purchase and not pay for it. Okay, so now the account will have to pay for these securities that were acquired by the debtor. Okay, that is what is meant by letter F. Okay, last one. And this is a potential bar issue. Any criminal action against the individual debtor or owner, partner, director, or officer of a debtor, which shall not be affected by any proceedings commenced under FRIA. This is again important. Okay. So there was a case. It was a case for BP22. The president of the corporation issued several checks in payment of the obligation of the corporation where he is the president. Okay? But he's not the owner of the corporation. He's just the president. But he was designated, he was authorized to issue checks for the corporation. Now, the corporation was already suffering from financial problems. But yet, the president issued checks for the corporation. Now, the corporation applied for corporate rehabilitation and a commencement order was issued. There was a stay order. And the issue here is what will happen to those checks that were issued by the president. Suppose the president was charged for violation of BP22 on account of the issuance of those checks that were unfunded. Can the criminal case for violation of BP22 be stayed as well because these checks benefited the corporation? The answer is no. Okay? The answer is no. The president's criminal prosecution will still proceed, notwithstanding the fact that the corporation where he is the president was issued a stay order by the rehabilitation court. Why? As stated here, any criminal action against an individual debtor or the owner, partner, director, or officer of the corporation, of that debtor corporation, shall not be affected. So the criminal case will not be affected. Okay? Another scenario. Suppose there was this trust receipt agreement. The trust receipt agreement was signed again by the president of the corporation. Suppose the corporation is a car dealer. They ordered several vehicles from the car manufacturer. The car manufacturer demanded payment, of course, because they are going to deliver the vehicles to the car dealer. The car dealer, represented by its president, went to a bank to apply for a trust receipt agreement. The trust receipt agreement states that a criminal case for estafa can be filed against the president, the one who signed the trust receipt agreement, if they are unable to pay the obligations under the trust receipt agreement, or they are unable to return the vehicle, which will be purchased by the bank. Okay. So the trust agreement has been duly executed. The vehicles were already delivered to the car dealer. The car dealer did not return the proceeds of the sale of these vehicles to the bank, who is the owner, technically the owner of the vehicles that were purchased from the manufacturer. Neither did the dealer pay their obligations to the bank. So a estafa case was filed against the president of the corporation who signed the trust receipt agreement. Eventually, there was this stay order issued by the Rehabilitation Court against all claims against the corporation. Can the President use this stay order issued by the Rehabilitation Court in order to prevent his prosecution for estafa under the agreement he signed, the trust receipt agreement he signed? The answer is no. As explicitly provided in Section 18 of Republic Act 10142 or FRIA, any criminal action against the individual debtor or its, in this case, officer, the President, shall not be affected by the issuance of a stay order. That stay order will not prevent the prosecution, the criminal prosecution of the President who signed the trust receipt agreement. Okay? So that is very significant insofar as your understanding of the effects and the exceptions to a stay order issued under the FRIA or the Foreclosure, Rehabilitation, and Insolvency Act, Republic Act number 10142.
Okay, now let's proceed to the Data Privacy Act. Okay, for us to be able to better understand this Data Privacy Act, we just need to remember that this law is designed for the purpose of protecting the privacy of individuals, practically the individuals. Okay, so let's now talk about some very important concepts in the Data Privacy Act. Okay, to start, let us first understand the concept of personal information. Okay, one of those informations that we need to look at insofar as the data privacy law is concerned would be personal information. Okay, personal information refers to any information, whether recorded in a material form or not, from which the identity of an individual is apparent or can be reasonably and directly ascertained by the entity holding the information, or when put together with the other information, would directly and certainly identify an individual. This is the long definition provided for under Section 3, letter G of Republic Act 10173 or the Data Privacy Act. Okay, when we look at personal information, this would be a piece or pieces of information which when placed together, okay, can already identify a particular individual with a certain degree of certainty. So meaning to say, when these informations are put together, joined together, a particular individual can be identified. So much so that an information standing alone on itself, if it will not identify with certainty a particular individual, then that is not yet considered personal information. The name Pedro de la Cruz alone on its own cannot be considered as personal information. But when Pedro de la Cruz or Juana de la Cruz will be joined with the cell phone number with the address of Pedro de la Cruz or Juan de la Cruz, then there will now be some sort of identification. There can now be a possibility this time that the Pedro de la Cruz that we are looking at is really the one standing by that name Pedro de la Cruz living in that particular address and having this mobile number. Okay? When this information are pieced together and can now identify an individual, these pieces of information now can be considered as personal information. Okay? So we should be able to have that very, very basic understanding of a personal information. One that can identify an individual with some degree of certainty. Okay, let us now move on to sensitive personal information. When we talk about sensitive personal information, do not forget the phrase personal information. But this time, it is qualified by the word sensitive. So this is a kind of personal information that can, when pieced together, will identify certainly an individual. But more than that, these pieces of information may already be considered as something personal and may no longer be, that the individual may no longer want to be disclosed to the public. Okay? So when we talk about sensitive personal information, we refer to personal information about the individual's race, the individual's ethnic origin, the individual's marital status, the individual's age, the individual's color, and religious, philosophical, or political affiliations. Okay. When we talk about the individual's race, an individual probably belongs to a particular descent. Okay, he may be of a certain particular nationality or a kind of race. He may be a Caucasian, he may be a Negro, or he may be an Arabian. Which information may be sensitive? He may not want to be this information to be discussed in public. He may belong to a particular ethnic group. Again, he may not want to be so identified with that ethnic group because he no longer want to be connected with them, to be associated with them. In the same way that an individual's marital status is sensitive. Suppose that person is an annulled individual, no? His marriage has been annulled. He doesn't want his marital status divulged to the public, or he doesn't want to be known to the public as someone who is married or someone who remains to be single, because as far as he's concerned, he wants this personally insulated from those other people in the community. Okay, he doesn't want probably his age to be disclosed. Again, sensitive personal information. His color, whether he belongs to the brown race or belonging to those with dark skin or light skin. He doesn't want to be his color to be disclosed, or very important, religious association. He may not want to be publicly known as belonging to a particular religious organization, or wanting to be he doesn't want to be publicly known to belong to a particular sect or religious grouping. Okay, he may not want to be connected with a particular philosophical group. Like, for example, one is doesn't want to be connected with the communists, although he is left-leaning, probably he doesn't want to be called a communist. Okay, and so therefore, that to me, that to him, that particular philosophical association is something that is so sensitive as far as he is concerned. Also his political affiliation, especially when
political season. He doesn't want to be associated with certain group of politicians or political groups. Okay, these are sensitive information which cannot be disclosed, no, as a matter of course, because these are sensitive personal information under the Data Privacy Act. What else can be considered as sensitive personal information? The law also talks about the individual's health. Probably the individual doesn't want his current medical condition divulged. If he is suffering from any, say, malignant medical condition, he doesn't want it disclosed to the public. Okay? His educational attainment. He doesn't want to be known to be a college dropout or a high school dropout. These are sensitive information. His genetic and sexual life. He may not want to be publicly known to be belonging to a particular group of individuals, say the LGBTQ, no? Plus. So these are those belonging, what we call belong to the third sex. No, they do not want to be associated with any of those, and so they want their sexual inclinations to be made secret. They do not want it disclosed. Okay. Also, any proceedings, and this is very important, cases or any proceedings for any offense committed by him or alleged to have been committed by him. If he is accused of a particular crime, and so a criminal case was filed against him, he doesn't want the public to be informed about his criminal case, whether it was an acquittal or a dismissal. He wants this to be private, no? So privacy. Okay. The disposal of such proceedings. He was the respondent in a, say, in a case for nullity of marriage, where his psychological state of mind was the issue. Okay? He doesn't want his psychological state of mind to be made public. Again, this is sensitive personal information. Okay? Or when if he is convicted, for example, for a particular offense, the years where the penalty imposed upon him by the courts. Okay, that again would be sensitive and personal information. Now, third one, those information issued by the government agencies peculiar to an individual, which includes but is not limited to his social security numbers, previous or current health records, licenses, its denial, suspension, or revocation, including tax returns. These are sensitive personal information. So if one was able to receive a copy, say, of the social security number of a particular individual, and then he passes this on without the conformity, without the consent of the owner of that SSS number or GSIS number, that is already a violation of the data privacy law. His previous and his current health records, suppose there was an annulment case filed against the respondent supposedly undergone a psychological test. And so there were records submitted to court pertaining to his state of mind. Now, someone got hold of these records and disclosed it in social media. Is there a violation of the data privacy of this individual? Of course there is, okay? And in fact, the violation pertains to the unauthorized disclosure not only of personal information, but sensitive personal information, okay?
Okay, he applied for a driver's license. He was issued a driver's license only to be revoked after some time for whatever reason. No? So the LTO revoked the driver's license of this particular individual. One was able to secure the LTO order declaring the revocation, ordering the revocation of the license of this particular driver, previously issued a license. Can this be considered a violation of the data privacy law once these particular records were made public without authority coming from the person involved? The answer is yes. Why? Because that is a sensitive personal information of that individual. Okay? Next is those information is specifically established by an executive order or an act of Congress declaring the same to be kept classified. For example, there was this law protecting whistleblowers, no? Those who are in the witness protection program. So they're supposed to assume a different identity for their protection. Okay. Now, someone was able to get hold of the list of those individuals in the witness protection program, their true identity versus their assumed identity. Now, this information were disclosed to the public without the authority, without the consent of those individuals in the list. Is there a violation of the data privacy law? For obvious reasons, yes, there was. Okay? So because this information are so classified, they are so confidential that the disclosure of which may even put their lives and liberty, their security in prejudice, no? So in peril. So they are supposed to be protected by the data privacy law. Okay? So these are the things, the 4 items, no, that may qualify a personal information and make it sensitive personal information. Okay? So by this time, you can already distinguish a personal information vis-a-vis a sensitive personal information. Just always make sure, and this is a key takeaway, when you are looking at a personal information which you yourselves believe to be something so sensitive, something so important to you, okay, which you do not want the public to meddle with, then that may be a sensitive personal information. So when the information, for example, on matters pertaining to your tax payments, okay, is that something that is sensitive personal information or a mere personal information? Obviously, people are so protective of their financial data, particularly the amount that they were paying to the government. So is it a sensitive personal information? Obviously, yes, it is a sensitive personal information. Now, having discussed this sensitive personal information, having compared this with a personal information, now, what would now be our key takeaway? Why are we discussing this? Because we are now going on to the rules. The rule on the processing of this personal information versus the rule pertaining to the processing of sensitive personal information. Okay, what is the rule? Let us first look into the rule pertaining to the processing of personal information, those that are not yet critical. Okay, personal information. What is the rule? The processing of personal information shall be permitted. It is allowed only if it is not
otherwise prohibited by law, and when at least one of the following conditions exists. So, meaning to say, as a general rule, when we are looking at personal information, it is allowed, no? The processing thereof is allowed. One cannot be charged for violating the Data Privacy Act if the processing pertains to the processing of personal information. However, there is just a simple qualifier there. The processing must meet at least one of the conditions. What are these? Number one, the data subject has given his or her consent. So if you're going to process the information of an individual, his name, his address, his telephone number, you are not violating the Data Privacy Act, especially if that individual whose personal information you are processing is or has given his consent. Okay? So the first one, consent. So if you are processing the information, personal information of an individual, and you do not want to violate the data privacy law, the easiest way is to get the consent of that individual. Okay? Get the consent of that individual. Next, even if the consent has not been given, if the processing of the personal information is necessary and is related to the fulfillment of a contract with the data subject, or in order to take steps at the request of the data subject prior to entering into a contract. There was a deed of sale being entered into by two individuals. Let's say it is for the purchase of a real property. Okay? So the seller now was preparing the deed of sale. The seller was asking the buyer to provide him with the information, personal information of the buyer. So the buyer provided his name. The buyer was asked to provide his personal circumstances necessary for completing the deed of sale. Now, assuming that the information to be provided in the deed of sale did not actually and directly came from the buyer. Instead, it was provided by the wife of the buyer. Okay? And so the seller started preparing the deed of sale. Was there a violation of the data privacy law? Considering that there was no consent given by the data subject, the husband. Instead, the information were provided by the wife. Okay? Was there a violation of the data privacy law? The answer is no. Why? Because the information obtained were necessary and related to the fulfillment of that contract, the deed of sale, which the seller was preparing. Okay? So there is obviously a lawful processing of the information. Okay, let's move forward. When the processing is necessary for the compliance with the legal obligation to which the personal information controller is subject. Okay? What do we mean by this? For example, the bank process the personal information of their customer, a bank customer, in accordance with the requirement of the General Banking Act of 2000, in accordance with the requirement of the anti-money laundering law. Okay? Now, is this something that would violate the data privacy law as far as the bank is concerned? The answer is no, because the bank was merely processing the information necessary as required as part of their obligation under the law. Okay? Next, the processing is necessary to protect vitally important interests of the data subject, including life and health. There was this individual who went to the barangay and was complaining that there were people threatening him. Okay? So this individual lodged a complaint before the office of the barangay chairman. As a matter of protocol, the staff of the barangay chairman requested for information, personal information of the complainant. Now, is this something that violates the data privacy law? The answer is no, because the processing of that personal information is necessary for the interest of the complaining individual, no, the one who went to the barangay to complain, and that is necessary also for ensuring the protection of his life and health. Okay, so that is a processing that is allowed under the law. When the processing also is necessary in order to respond to a national emergency, to comply with the requirements of public order and safety, or to fulfill functions of public authority, which necessarily includes the processing of personal data for the fulfillment of its mandate. There were projects, okay, several projects being promoted by the government, and they are providing assistance, okay, monetary assistance to those individuals who probably do not have work, do not have a steady income. But before they can provide the necessary monetary assistance to these individuals, they need to process their personal information. So the individuals were requested to fill up the forms, which naturally would include their names, okay, their addresses, their contact numbers, okay, probably even some other information relative to their personal being. Now, if that were being processed, is that something that would violate the data privacy law? The answer is no. Why? Because this processing of the personal information of these data subjects is necessary in order to comply with the requirements of the law requiring or rather allowing the assistance to be given to those individuals wanting or needing the help of the government. Also, when, say, the processing of the information is necessary for, say, vaccination of the people in a particular community, vaccination, health-related concerns. So, if the barangay health center would process the information of those wanting to have vaccines administered on them, will these health officials be considered as in violation of the data privacy law? The answer is no. Again, this would be an exception. Okay. This is allowed. The processing of personal information shall be permitted. Okay? Now, also, when the processing of the information is necessary for the purpose of legitimate interest pursued by the personal information controller or by a third party or parties to whom the data is disclosed, except where such interests are overridden by fundamental rights and freedoms of the data subject, which requires protection under the Philippine Constitution. For example, okay, there is this activity, or say a project by the controller, no? Say the employer, okay, the employer would like to obtain health cards, no? These are the HMO cards for their employees. But before they can extend this benefit to their employees, naturally, there will be processing of information to be given to the HMO provider, okay, to the health card provider. Naturally, the names of the persons involved, their personal circumstances, even some of their sensitive information like health conditions will have to be passed on to the HMO, the health card provider. Is there a violation of the data privacy law in that case? The answer is no, because that is necessary for the legitimate interest being pursued by the employer, in this case, the personal information controller. Okay, now let us now distinguish the processing of personal information with the processing of sensitive personal information. Okay, in the processing of sensitive personal information, note the rule. The rule provides that the processing of sensitive personal information and privileged information shall be prohibited. Unlike the processing of personal information which is allowed, the processing of sensitive personal information as a general rule is prohibited. So you will see here, and the key takeaway here is very easy. When we talk about sensitive personal information, the rule is it is prohibited. When we talk about personal information, the rule is it is permitted. So it is therefore important for us to be able to have that clear understanding on the kind of information that we are going to process. If you are going to process purely personal information, that is permitted as a general rule. When you are processing sensitive personal information as a general rule, that is not allowed. Okay? That is not allowed. That is prohibited. Okay. However, the rule, the general rule that prohibits the processing of sensitive personal information admits of certain exceptions. And what is important would be for us to have a good understanding of what are not allowed to be processed. No, what would be rather allowed to be processed. Sensitive personal information that are allowed to be processed. Okay, number one, when the data subject has given his or her consent is specific to the data, to the purpose prior to the processing of the information, or in the case of privileged information, all parties to the exchange have given their consent prior to the processing. Okay. If you will recall earlier, we were discussing about personal information. And we said that as a rule, it is permitted provided at least one of those conditions are satisfied. And one of the condition then is the grant of consent. Okay. Now, that grant of consent is also applicable insofar as processing of sensitive personal information. What is the difference? In processing of personal information, the consent is generic. Okay? And once the consent is given, it is already a permission to process the information. But in the case of sensitive personal information, the grant of consent should be specific, okay, for the purpose prior to the processing. When the data subject gave the consent, it should be something that is specific for the processing of his or her information relative to the medical processing of his sensitive personal information relative to his confinement in the hospital. Okay? That is required because what will be processed here is sensitive. Unlike when one's information like the name, the telephone number, the address for the purpose of coming up with an ID for this particular data subject. Once he signed the authority, that is okay. It is not required that the grant of authority be specific only for the purpose of issuing the ID. No, there is no such requirement under the law. But the law requires specific identification of the purpose when the information to be processed is sensitive personal information. Okay. When we talk about sensitive personal information, there may be sensitive personal information where a group of individuals will have to give their consent. For example, there was a case pending with several individuals involved. And this information related to the case will be processed. One of those involved in the case gave his consent. The others did not or were not able to give their consent. Probably they were not asked to give their consent. Now, is there a violation of the Data Privacy Act considering that the information is sensitive? Okay? Now, that is a privileged information, a court-related proceedings. Now, is there a violation of the data privacy law? The answer is yes. Why? Because only one gave his consent. The others did not or were not able to provide their consent. It is therefore imperative, therefore important for the one who will process the information to make sure that all the parties would be able to give their consent in the processing of the sensitive personal information before they even process the information. And take note, the consent should be given prior to the processing of the information, not after the information has been processed. Okay? So, for one to be able to validly, lawfully process a sensitive personal information and he wants to obtain this information, he would need to get the consent specific for the purpose, and also it should be obtained prior to the processing of the information. If the consent was given post the processing of the information, then there was a violation of the data privacy law. Okay? Let us move forward. Another exception, okay, in the processing of sensitive personal information, we said that it is prohibited. Another exception is when the processing of the sensitive personal information is provided for by existing laws and regulation. For example, one is applying for a driver's license. He went to the LTO and was required to undergo, drug test. Now, is this in violation of the data privacy rights of the applicant for a driver's license? The answer is no. Because the requirement of processing the sensitive personal information is required by law and existing regulations. Okay? So, please take note also of this exception. In this particular instance, no need to secure the consent, the authority from the data subject. Okay? Next. The third exception would be that the processing is necessary to protect the life and health of the data subject or another person, and the data subject is not legally or physically able to express his or her consent prior to the processing. You have probably a patient, no? A patient was brought to the hospital, emergency condition. He was a stroke victim. So when he was brought to the hospital, he was already unconscious. He was accompanied by, a caregiver who is also close to the patient. When the patient was brought to the emergency room, the doctors do not know really what caused the patient to be unconscious. So the doctor asked for the medical information relative to the patient. You know that medical information are sensitive personal information. But the question is, will the processing of the sensitive personal information be violative of the data privacy law, considering that the patient did not give his consent for the processing of his sensitive personal information? What if after, say, several weeks, the patient was able to recover and discovered that his information, sensitive personal information, were processed? Okay? Can he sue the hospital? Can he sue the caregiver who brought him to the hospital and provided the sensitive personal information? The answer is no. Okay? The processing of the sensitive personal information was necessary to protect the life and health of the data subject. And at that precise moment, the data subject is not legally or physically able to express his or her consent because he was unconscious. Okay? So in that particular instance, the processing of his personal information is allowed. Okay, let's move forward. The processing is necessary to achieve the lawful and non-commercial objectives of public organizations and their associations. There was a homeowners association and they would like to hold their election. The COMELEC of that homeowners association required the candidates to submit their police clearance or NBI clearance just to be sure that those running for that position in their organization does not have criminal records. Okay? So one submitted his NBI clearance. Okay? And when his NBI clearance was submitted, there was a notation there that he has a criminal case still pending. Okay? Now, because of this negative information, the COMELEC disqualified him. Here, the individual whose sensitive personal information was processed complained because according to him, he did not authorize the processing of his sensitive personal information. And likewise, the information about his pending criminal cases were processed, okay, in violation of the Data Privacy Act because it was a sensitive personal information. And the COMELEC of their organization processed that sensitive personal information. Is there considered a violation of the data privacy law? The answer is no. Because that particular situation would fall under the fourth exception in the processing of sensitive personal information. What is that? The processing is necessary to achieve the lawful and non-commercial objectives of public organizations and their association. And this is mandated by the organization for a lawful purpose. They just want to make sure that their organization will be led by people who doesn't have criminal cases pending against them. So the processing is for a lawful. Okay? There is a lawful purpose for requiring the processing of this sensitive personal information.